guys, thanks so much for watching. We're gonna do a little DIY today. I'm gonna show you how to make a DIY wedding centerpiece that's a little bit untraditional because you use Jenga blocks to make this. By the end of this video, hopefully you will find value and learn how to make your own DIY Jenga centerpiece. I personally think this is a really great idea for any kind of wedding, from a backyard wedding to a fancy wedding, because it brings your guests together. It makes your wedding centerpiece interactive, so your guests have a little game to play with each other, whether it's just normal Jenga, or the way that I like to play it is I like to write questions on each little Jenga piece block. So kind of like silly questions, or even kind of more personal questions, so that your guests sitting at the table get to know each other every time they pick a Jenga piece. Essentially, they pick a Jenga piece and they have to answer the question that's on that piece before putting it on the top of the Jenga tower. And the way that I've designed this Jenga tower centerpiece in particular, the colorful pieces, the turquoise pieces, are regular questions, and the silver pieces are like more dares. It's kind of like a truth or dare Jenga. So instead of just having flowers or something as your wedding centerpiece, this just makes it a little bit more fun and interactive. It's also really cheap. I think I spent like less than $10 on all of the items. I already had Jenga that we got from a thrift store, so make sure and just like scour your local thrift shops for a Jenga set. So I actually made the centerpiece yesterday. I'm gonna show you footage from what I did and just talk you through step by step my process for making this. It's super, super easy. Let me know what you think in the comments below, if this is totally hideous or interesting, or I don't know, whatever you think. Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear. Yeah, let's get right into it. And so what I ended up doing here, guys, I'm just looking at my footage that I shot earlier, is that I laid out magazines on my coffee table just so I didn't make a mess. I actually did end up making a mess anyway, but hopefully you'll do a better job than I did of covering up your coffee table or wherever it is you're doing this. And I just started out by dumping all of my Jenga pieces the way they are onto the table. You'll notice that my Jenga pieces had little numbers on them written in Sharpie, and this is because we used to use our Jenga as, we called it no small talk Jenga. So whenever we would have people over, we would just have like the Jenga game on our table, and we would print off questions that we kept actually like taped up under our coffee table in our coffee table's glass, so you would be able to see the questions through it. So if there's ever like a lull in the conversation or whatever, I know this is really dorky, I know, but like whenever there's a lull in the conversation, we'd be like, oh, pick a Jenga question. And so basically that's just like picking a Jenga piece, and it would have a number on it, and that number would correspond to one of the questions on our coffee table list. And the reason we put numbers instead of writing the questions on each piece is because it's a lot easier to print off new questions numbered 1 through 54, because there's 54 blocks in a Jenga set, than to rewrite on every Jenga block by hand 54 questions. So if you want to be like us and make your own Jenga set for your house, I highly recommend putting numbers on the Jenga blocks and not writing out the questions. But I think for your wedding, for making a wedding centerpiece, it's nice to have the questions written on each block. But it's totally up to you. I poured these Jenga pieces out on the table. I played with them a little bit. And then I used acrylic paint for this. I used this turquoise paint just because I thought it was pretty, kind of like a Tiffany blue turquoise. And I also used this silver paint. I just like turquoise and silver together. I mean, like, I love bright colors too, so whatever your wedding colors are, I would recommend going with that. And then essentially I just watched some TV and painted some blocks, and to be honest, it was really relaxing and fun. I had a good time doing this in my living room. And I think what I ended up doing is I painted 10 of the blocks silver, and the rest I made turquoise. So yeah, there's no rule or anything. That's just how I decided to do it. As you can see, I'm not wearing gloves in this video. You probably should wear gloves. I don't know if acrylic paint is toxic, but I don't want to get anybody in trouble, so maybe just wear gloves when you do this. I was a mess and I got paint all over myself, but just washing it off afterward was fine. It came right off in water, with water and soap. As far as how long this took me, it took me a while. It probably took me like over an hour to paint these 54 blocks because I painted them and then I stood them up because I didn't want to paint the bottom because I didn't want it to get messed up. So I stood them up and then I waited for them to dry, which was maybe 20-30 minutes, and then I grabbed the other side and painted the bottom, and then I had to wait for those to dry. So all in all, it took like, I don't know, a couple of hours maybe to paint all of these. And I think you should just keep that in mind if you're gonna be making like 20 tables, centerpieces for 20 tables for your wedding. Obviously, this is not really practical unless you have a team of friends who can come over and have a painting party with you, and that would be really fun. But if not, it's probably better to just spray paint these. That wasn't an option for me because I live in an apartment and I don't have like a yard to spray paint on. But if you do have the option of space, it might be a really good idea to just spray paint these. I also was messy with my painting and got a little bit of silver on the blue and a little bit of blue on the silver, so try not to be as messy as me and and keep these guys separate, and make sure you do a nice job of painting them. It should only take one coat. It was only one coat of paint for me for the acrylic paint, which was really nice. Next up, I painted the rubber duckies, which, like I said, you don't have to do this if you don't want. I know they're a little bit goofy looking, so don't feel like you need to do this exactly how I did. But if you do want to put anything cute on top, I also got some plastic dinosaurs from the thrift shop, but they were a little bit too big to fit onto my Jenga platform at the top. So what I'm gonna do instead is make a DIY cake topper video about those cool dollar store dinosaurs. So keep an eye out for that. You can really, again, you can really use any kind of cake topper or toys or whatever, or nothing at all to put on top of your Jenga centerpiece. After I washed my hands, and like I said, it came right off, no problem at all as far as the acrylic paint goes. I do think acrylic paint was a good idea. It worked really well. It wasn't too messy, and it only required one layer, and it was super cheap. So maybe after like 30 minutes, I touched all the blocks and made sure they were dry before I started stacking them. If you stack them before they are completely dry, you will notice that your blocks stick together a little bit. And that's not good for Jenga, right? Because they need to be able to slide when you touch them, or you can't play the Jenga, and that's not fun at all. Once the pieces were completely dry, I went ahead and stacked them. There was no like rhyme or reason as far as the turquoise versus the silver blocks. I just kind of did it how I thought was pretty. I tried to space out the silver blocks as much as possible. I really just messed around with it, so don't be afraid to experiment, move those silver blocks around. See what looks best to you. I think when I first started stacking them, I put too many turquoise blocks together, and then I eventually spaced out the silver blocks a little bit more until I found something that I was happy with and I thought looked pretty. And while you're doing this, play around with it a little bit. Make sure that your blocks can easily slide out. I mean, not all of them, but some of them you should be able to tap and slide through pretty easily. If they're all really hard to move, it might just be that your blocks were not dry enough and you just need to let them sit a little bit longer. And with acrylic paint, also be sure to wash your brushes off with water really good after you use them. I'm not an expert in this, but that's what I did. I've left my brushes afterward with acrylic paint on them, and they just get like rock hard. So make sure you wash your brushes afterward. I just use water. Maybe there's a better way to do this. Artists out there, let me know. And really, you should be left with this really pretty Jenga tower. So the next thing to do is to write your questions. Like I said, I use this kind of like knockoff Sharpie from the dollar store. I think a permanent marker with this kind of tip works really well. And I just started writing some questions that I think are really interesting from that list I told you guys about, my list of 54 no small talk Jenga questions. Actually, guys, if you're interested in having a copy of these questions, let me know in the comments down below and I'll find a way to get them to you, email them to you, or link them to you or something. So on the turquoise ones, I wrote interesting questions, and then on the silver ones, I wrote actions that you should do. So cute actions, nothing that's gonna be too embarrassing, nothing that they can't do in the context of sitting at a table during a wedding. So you have to be a little bit creative and know your crowd, know what people feel comfortable doing. If you have any ideas for cute dares that people can do at a wedding, write them in the comments down below. I would love to hear what you come up with. And then as far as the base of the centerpiece, I feel like this could be really anything. So I just decided to do it like this. I got a $2 mirror from that same dollar store, but you definitely don't need to have this. You can use some other kind of base if you want. Side note, be really careful if you have to remove a frame from the mirror, because I pulled a little bit too hard on the plastic and like a dummy, I broke my mirror. So I had to get a little bit creative and get some Sola wood flowers and help cover up the spots of the broken mirror. Hopefully this won't happen to you. And then, like I said, I just grabbed a glass from my cabinet. You can use a prettier or more intricate glass if you want, or a glass that's specifically designed for holding tea lights that are really, really pretty. And then I just lit a tea light candle, plopped it in. Oh, I filled the glass up with water, plopped the candle in. And voila, I had a perfect little Sola wood flower Jenga DIY centerpiece. If you want to get Sola wood flowers for your centerpiece, you can get them on ohyourlovely.com. I actually have a code with Oh You're Lovely as well. It's Wayfaring20. So if you use the code Wayfaring20, you get a discount on your first order at ohyourlovely.com. And then, of course, I just put the little rubber duckies on top of the centerpiece. So yeah, guys, really easy to make your own DIY wedding centerpiece. I know this is a little unconventional and strange. If you hate this video, I totally understand. But hopefully it's helpful for some people out there who are looking for something a little bit different at their weddings, or hopefully it'll help you, inspire you to make your own version of this. And just have fun with your centerpieces. They don't have to be boring or, you know, what you've seen 1,000 million times at weddings in the past. If you like this video, please remember to like it down below, subscribe to my channel, and let me know what other DIY videos might be helpful for you in your own budget wedding planning. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.